My dear sister, let me ask you something very important. Have you ever felt different, not in a way that made you proud, but in a way that made you feel misunderstood, isolated, or even questioned by the people around you? You walk away from things others run toward. You choose silence when others crave attention. You obey Allah in moments no one ever sees, and yet life still tests you deeply. You may have wondered, why am I like this? Why do I feel alone even when I am doing what is right? Today, I want you to listen very carefully, because what you thought was your weakness may actually be the strongest sign that Allah loves you. Some personalities are not common. They are not designed for the crowd. They are shaped through sincerity, patience, and quiet faith. And if you recognize yourself in what we are about to discuss, understand this clearly. Allah did not make you this way by accident. As one, she chooses Allah even when no one is watching. My dear sister, one of the clearest and most powerful signs of an extremely rare personality is sincerity in private, because this is where true faith lives and where Allah's love is earned. You choose Allah not because someone is monitoring your actions, not because you fear being judged by people, and not because you want to be praised as a good or religious person. You choose Allah because your heart knows that He sees you at all times, even in moments when the entire world is unaware of your struggle. When no one is there to applaud you, to correct you, or to remind you, your conscience still wakes you up. This is not common. This is Iman rooted deep within the heart. You lower your gaze even when temptation is easy and consequences seem invisible. You step away from conversations, relationships, or opportunities that look attractive on the surface but would cost you your peace with Allah. You do not announce your sacrifices. You do not post your restraint, and you do not explain yourself to people who would never understand the weight of that decision. You walk away quietly, sometimes with a heavy heart, sometimes with tears, but always with trust that Allah will replace what you left behind with something purer and safer for your soul. You pray when your body is tired and your mind is exhausted. You pray when no one expects it from you, when your routine feels heavy and when your emotions feel scattered. Even on days when your Iman feels low, you still turn to Allah, not because it feels easy, but because you know where your healing comes from. That is sincerity. That is choosing Allah even when motivation is low and no one is there to remind you. This kind of worship is not driven by emotion, it is driven by conviction. This level of sincerity is deeply beloved to Allah because it reflects real Iman, not performative faith. The Prophet ﷺ Muhammad taught us clearly that Allah does not look at our bodies or our outward appearance, but He looks at our hearts and our actions. When your private life is more disciplined, more modest, and more obedient than what people see on the outside, that is a powerful sign that Allah loves what He sees within you. It means your relationship with Allah is real, personal, and alive, not dependent on approval, validation, or recognition. My dear sister, if you often do the right thing while feeling unseen, if your strongest moments of faith happen in silence, and if your greatest sacrifices are known only to Allah, understand this clearly. This is not ordinary. This is a rare personality shaped by sincerity, and sincerity is one of the fastest paths to Allah's love and protection. 2. She is comfortable standing alone for the sake of truth. My dear sister, another powerful sign of an extremely rare personality is that you are comfortable standing alone when it comes to truth, even when that loneliness feels heavy on your heart. You do not follow the crowd blindly, and you do not shape your values according to what is popular, trending, or socially acceptable. Instead, you measure your choices against what pleases Allah, even if it means being misunderstood, questioned, or left behind. This strength does not come from arrogance or stubbornness. It comes from deep conviction and clarity of faith. You have learned, sometimes through painful experiences, that not everyone who smiles at you wants good for your akhirah, and not every path that looks easy leads to Allah. So when you sense that a situation, relationship, or environment is pulling you away from your deen, you step back. You may hesitate, you may feel emotional, and you may even struggle internally, but in the end, you choose obedience over comfort. That choice often costs you companionship, approval, and sometimes even family or friends, but you accept that loss because your heart refuses to betray what it knows is right. Standing alone does not mean you think you are better than others. In fact, many times you question yourself deeply. You make istikhara, you seek guidance, you ask Allah to correct you if you are wrong. But once clarity settles in your heart, you do not compromise. You do not dilute your modesty to be liked. You do not soften your values to avoid criticism. You do not stay silent when silence would mean accepting falsehood. This quiet courage is extremely rare, especially in a world that pressures women to blend in at any cost. Allah reminds us in the Quran that truth has never been the path of the majority, and that many prophets stood alone before anyone stood with them. The Prophet Muhammad faced rejection, mockery, and isolation simply for calling people to what was right. So if you feel lonely because you chose integrity over acceptance, understand that you are walking a path honored by Allah. Loneliness, for the sake of Allah, is not abandonment, it is elevation. My dear sister, when you can walk away without bitterness, stand firm without arrogance, and remain gentle without surrendering your principles, that is a sign of spiritual maturity. Allah often separates those He loves so they are not shaped by crowds, but guided directly by Him. If you often find yourself choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, even when no one claps for you, know that this strength is not accidental. It is a mark of a rare personality, one that Allah is preparing for something higher than this world's approval. 3. She responds with patience instead of reaction. My dear sister, one of the deepest signs of an extremely rare personality is not found in how loudly you defend yourself, but in how calmly you carry yourself when you are hurt. You have learned that not every word deserves a response, and not every misunderstanding needs an explanation. When you are provoked, criticized, or treated unfairly, something within you pauses before reacting. You feel the emotion, yes, but you do not allow it to control your behavior. This is not because you feel nothing, but because you trust Allah more than you trust your impulses. In a world that rewards instant reactions, your patience stands out. Many people speak when they are angry, expose when they are wounded, and destroy relationships when emotions take over. But you have learned, often through painful lessons, that reacting in the heat of the moment only multiplies regret. So instead you breathe, you step back, and you hand the situation to Allah. You remind yourself that Allah sees what people do not see, hears what is said behind closed doors, and knows intentions even when words are twisted. This awareness gives you strength to remain dignified when others lose control. Patience does not mean you accept injustice or allow repeated harm. It means you choose wisdom over chaos. You know when to stay silent and when to speak, when to walk away and when to stand firm. You do not rush to explain yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. You do not exhaust your heart trying to convince others of your goodness. Instead, you place your trust in Allah's justice, believing deeply that no truth remains hidden forever and no wrong goes unanswered in His court. There are moments, my dear sister, when your silence feels heavy. You replay conversations in your mind. You wonder if you should have defended yourself more strongly or spoken sooner. But with time, you realize that Allah protected you through that restraint. Many conflicts you avoided would have pulled you into unnecessary sin, bitterness, or emotional damage. Many words you did not say saved your heart from becoming hardened. Your patience preserved your inner peace, and inner peace is a gift many people never experience. This kind of patience is not passive, it is active faith. It is choosing self-control over ego, long-term peace over short-term relief, and Allah's pleasure over momentary satisfaction. When you respond with patience instead of reaction, you show that your heart is trained, disciplined, and deeply anchored in trust. That is why this quality is so rare. Anyone can react. Very few can pause, reflect, and choose righteousness under pressure. My dear sister, if people often mistake your calmness for weakness, understand that they are seeing only the surface. Inside you is strength, restraint, and deep reliance on Allah. This is the patience Allah loves, the patience that elevates your rank, cleanses your heart, and protects your soul. A woman who can remain composed while tested is not weak at all. She is spiritually powerful, emotionally intelligent, and divinely guarded. 4. She finds peace in obedience, not in attention. My dear sister, one of the most beautiful and rare signs of a personality Allah loves is that your heart finds peace in obedience rather than in attention. You are not driven by the need to be seen, admired, or constantly affirmed by people. You do not measure your worth by how many notice you, praise you, or desire you. Instead, there is a quiet satisfaction in your heart that comes from knowing you are trying to please Allah, even if no one else recognizes your effort. This inner calm is not common, especially in a world that teaches women to chase visibility at any cost. You have learned that attention is loud but temporary, while obedience is quiet and lasting. Compliments may lift the ego for a moment, but they do not heal the heart. Validation may feel comforting, but it fades quickly and often leaves you wanting more. Obedience, however, settles something deep inside you. When you dress with modesty for Allah, speak with restraint for Allah, and live with integrity for Allah, your soul feels protected. Even when life is difficult, even when you feel lonely, there is a sense of alignment within you, as if your heart knows it is in the right place. This does not mean you are immune to feeling overlooked or unappreciated. You are human, and there are moments when you wish your efforts were acknowledged, when you wish someone noticed how much you give, how much you hold back, and how much you sacrifice. But instead of chasing attention to fill that emptiness, you turn inward and upward. You remind yourself that Allah sees every intention, every struggle, and every quiet act of obedience. You remember that being seen by Allah is far more valuable than being admired by people. My dear sister, the woman who finds peace in obedience is not cold or detached from the world. She still loves, cares, and contributes, but she is no longer controlled by the need to impress or perform. She does not alter her values to stay relevant, nor does she compromise her modesty to remain desirable. Her confidence comes from purpose, not popularity. Her self-worth is rooted in faith, not feedback. This quality is extremely rare because it requires deep spiritual maturity. It means you have understood that your life is not a performance, but a trust. When you choose obedience over attention, Allah replaces the noise of the world with tranquility in your heart. That tranquility becomes your strength. It keeps you grounded when others are restless, focused when others are distracted, and content when others are constantly chasing more. My dear sister, if your heart feels most at ease when you are close to Allah, even if the world is quiet around you, know that this is a sign of divine favor. Allah gives this kind of peace only to those who seek Him sincerely. A woman who finds peace in obedience is not empty. She is full of purpose, guarded by faith, and deeply loved by Allah. 5. She turns pain into closeness with Allah. My dear sister, one of the most profound and rare signs of a personality Allah truly loves is the way you deal with pain. When hardship enters your life, you do not allow it to turn you bitter, rebellious, or distant from Allah. Instead, your pain becomes a doorway that leads you closer to Him. This does not mean the pain does not hurt. It does not mean you do not cry, feel confused, or struggle to understand why something happened. It means that even while your heart is breaking, it still knows where to turn for safety. Many people run from Allah when they are tested. They question His wisdom, withdraw from prayer, and allow disappointment to harden their hearts. But you, my dear sister, do the opposite. When you are hurt, you pray more. When you feel lost, you make more dua. When the world feels heavy, you seek refuge in Allah's presence. Your tears fall in sujood, not in complaint to people who cannot heal you. This response to pain is not natural. It is learned through faith, reflection, and deep trust in Allah's mercy. You have realized, perhaps through repeated trials, that worldly comfort does not heal spiritual wounds. People may listen, but they cannot fully understand. Advice may come, but it does not always bring peace. So you turn to the one who knows your heart better than you know it yourself. You speak to Allah with honesty, not pretending to be strong, not hiding your fears, but laying everything before Him. In doing so, you find a strange calm, even in the middle of suffering. That calm is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of Allah in your pain. My dear sister, turning pain into closeness with Allah requires a heart that believes hardship is not meaningless. You understand that Allah does not test you to break you, but to purify you, strengthen you, and elevate your rank. Every trial becomes a lesson, every delay becomes protection, and every loss becomes a redirection towards something better for your soul. You may not see the wisdom immediately, but you trust that Allah's plan is kinder than your understanding. This quality is extremely rare because it requires surrender instead of resistance. It means accepting that some questions will remain unanswered in this world, yet choosing faith over frustration. It means believing that Allah is near even when life feels unfair. When you respond to pain by increasing your connection with Allah, your heart grows softer, not harder, and stronger, not colder. My dear sister, if your hardest moments have brought you closer to Allah instead of pushing you away, know that this is a sign of deep Iman. Allah shapes His most beloved servants through difficulty because only strong hearts can carry greater light. A woman who turns pain into closeness with Allah is not broken by life. She is refined by it, protected by faith, and held by a mercy far greater than anything this world can offer. 6. She has a soft heart but strong boundaries. My dear sister, one of the rarest and most misunderstood signs of a personality Allah loves is this balance between softness and strength. You have a gentle heart, you feel deeply, you care sincerely. You are compassionate toward people's pain and quick to make excuses for their shortcomings. You are not harsh by nature, and you do not enjoy hurting others, exposing them, or winning arguments at the cost of someone's dignity. Your heart leans naturally toward mercy. Yet, at the same time, you have learned something essential. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. So you protect your heart, your faith, and your peace with wisdom. This balance did not come easily. It was shaped by experience. You were once too available, too forgiving, too understanding. You stayed longer than you should have, tolerated behavior you should not have, and gave chances where limits were needed. And you paid the price emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes physically. But instead of letting those experiences harden you, you allowed them to teach you. You learned that having a soft heart does not require you to accept disrespect, manipulation, or repeated harm. You learned that Islam does not demand that you sacrifice your well-being to prove patience. Islam honors dignity, self-respect, and emotional safety. Now, my dear sister, you love without losing yourself. You forgive without reopening doors that Allah closed to protect you. You help without draining your soul. You listen with empathy, but you no longer absorb what does not belong to you. You can say no without guilt and walk away without hatred. This is not coldness, this is clarity. It is the understanding that boundaries are not walls against love, but gates that protect what is sacred. You are gentle in speech, but firm in principle. You do not raise your voice, yet your silence speaks clearly. You do not threaten, yet your actions show that you respect yourself. When someone crosses your limits, you do not explode or seek revenge. You calmly remove access. You disengage with dignity. You trust that Allah sees your restraint and will handle what you leave behind. This level of emotional maturity is extremely rare. especially in a world that encourages either complete submission or aggressive self-defense. You stand in the middle, guided by faith and wisdom. My dear sister, strong boundaries are not a sign of ego, they are a sign of self-awareness. You understand your emotional limits, your spiritual priorities, and your responsibility toward your own heart. You know that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot serve Allah properly if you are constantly wounded by people who do not value your presence. So you protect your energy, your time, and your trust. Not everyone deserves access to you, and you are no longer ashamed of that truth. Allah loves this balance because it reflects justice within the self. You are not oppressive toward others, and you are not oppressive toward yourself. You do not excuse cruelty in the name of patience, and you do not abandon mercy in the name of strength. You embody ihsan in your relationships, excellence rooted in balance. This is the character of believers who understand that the heart is an amana, a trust from Allah, and must be guarded with care. My dear sister, if you have learned to remain kind without being naive, forgiving without being foolish, and loving without losing your values, know that this did not happen by accident. Allah refined you. He taught you through trials how to love with wisdom. A woman with a soft heart and strong boundaries is not difficult, not distant, and not selfish. She is emotionally intelligent, spiritually grounded, and deeply protected by Allah. 7. She trusts Allah's timing even when life feels unfair. My dear sister, one of the rarest and most powerful signs of a personality Allah loves is this quiet, unwavering trust in His timing, even when your heart feels tired of waiting and your life feels painfully unfair. You look around and see others receiving what you have been praying for. You see doors opening for people who seem less careful with their faith, less patient in hardship, and less conscious of Allah than you are. And yet, despite the questions that rise within you, you do not accuse Allah of injustice. You do not lose respect for His wisdom. Instead, you remind your heart, again and again, that Allah's delay is not His denial. Trusting Allah's timing does not mean you are emotionless. It does not mean you do not feel sadness, disappointment, or longing. You feel all of it deeply. There are nights when your chest feels heavy, when you wonder why your journey has been harder, longer, or lonelier than others. There are moments when you whisper to Allah with tears, asking how much longer you must wait, how much more patience is required from you. But even in those moments, you do not turn your back on Him. You stay, you pray, you hope, you endure. That is not weakness. That is faith at its highest level. You understand, my dear sister, that rushing Allah's plan would harm you, even if it seems like relief in the moment. You have learned that what arrives too early can break you, and what is delayed often comes with protection you cannot yet see. You trust that Allah knows the exact moment your heart will be ready, your soul will be strong enough, and your iman will be steady enough to carry what you are asking for. This trust allows you to wait without becoming bitter and to hope without becoming desperate. There is a deep maturity in the way you wait. You do not chase what Allah has not written for you. You do not force doors that require you to compromise your faith, your dignity, or your peace. You are willing to remain alone rather than enter something that would pull you away from Allah. You are willing to remain patient rather than settle for something that would wound your soul. This kind of patience is extremely rare because it requires believing that Allah's plan is kinder than your desires. Sometimes, my dear sister, trusting Allah's timing means accepting that your path will look different from what you imagined. You may not receive things in the order you expected. You may experience loss before stability, delay before fulfillment, and silence before clarity. But instead of resisting this reality, you surrender to it. You tell your heart that Allah sees the full picture while you see only a fragment. You remind yourself that the same Allah who controls time also controls outcomes, and He never makes mistakes. This trust shapes the way you live, You continue to do good without immediate reward. You remain obedient even when results are not visible. You keep making dua even when answers are delayed. You do not abandon prayer because things are slow, and you do not abandon gratitude because life feels heavy. You live with a sense of inner stability that does not depend on circumstances changing quickly. Your peace is not rooted in having everything now, but in believing that what is written for you will arrive at the perfect moment. My dear sister, Allah loves this level of trust because it reflects true submission. It is easy to believe when life is smooth. It is easy to trust when everything makes sense. But trusting Allah when life feels confusing, when your heart aches, and when answers are delayed, is a form of worship that few reach. This trust purifies your heart from envy, desperation, and resentment. It protects you from comparing your journey to others. It allows you to move through life with grace instead of anxiety. If you are in a season of waiting, understand this clearly. Waiting with faith is not wasted time. Allah is working in the unseen. He is arranging, protecting, and preparing you in ways you cannot yet comprehend. Every day you wait with patience increases your rank. Every moment you trust Him despite uncertainty brings you closer to Him. A woman who trusts Allah's timing does not rush destiny. She walks toward it calmly, knowing that what Allah has written for her will never miss her, and what missed her was never meant to stay. My dear sister, if you are still standing, still praying, still trusting, even when life feels unfair, know that this strength did not come from you alone. Allah placed it in your heart because He loves you, because He is preparing you, and because He knows that you can carry something beautiful when the time is right. 7. She trusts Allah's timing even when life feels unfair. My dear sister, one of the most demanding tests of faith is not hardship itself, but waiting while carrying unanswered questions in your heart. An extremely rare personality is revealed when a woman continues to trust Allah's timing, even when life feels deeply unfair, unbalanced, and heavy on her soul. You look around and see others receiving what you have been praying for with ease. You see doors opening for people who did not guard their hearts the way you did, who did not sacrifice what you sacrificed, who did not wait the way you waited. And yet, despite the ache in your chest, you do not accuse Allah of neglect. You do not lose adab with Him. You do not allow disappointment to turn into rebellion. Instead, you choose trust, even when trust feels painful. Trusting Allah's timing does not mean that you are numb or unaffected. You feel everything. You feel the loneliness of delay. You feel the exhaustion of patience. You feel the silent question that returns again and again. Why not yet? There are nights when you lie awake replaying your du'as, wondering if you ask wrongly, if you are being tested beyond your capacity, or if something is missing within you. But even in those moments, you do not walk away from Allah. You speak to Him honestly. You cry to Him openly. You remain connected even when clarity has not arrived. That choice alone is a sign of a heart anchored in faith. You have come to understand, my dear sister, that Allah's timing is not slow, careless, or random. It is precise, it is intentional, it is protective. What arrives too early can overwhelm you. What you are not prepared for can damage you. And what seems like delay is often Allah shielding you from a version of life that would have harmed your faith, your peace, or your future. You trust that Allah knows the exact moment your heart will be ready, your iman will be stable, and your character will be strong enough to carry what you are asking for. This level of trust requires deep humility because it means accepting that Allah knows you better than you know yourself. An extremely rare woman does not force what Allah has not opened. You do not chase outcomes that require you to compromise your values. You do not rush into relationships, decisions, or paths that feel wrong just to escape the pain of waiting. You would rather remain patient than settle for something that would pull you away from Allah or cost you your inner peace. This kind of patience is not passive, it is active surrender. It is choosing Allah every day, even when your desires are screaming for relief. Sometimes trusting Allah's timing means accepting that your journey will look different from what you imagined. You may experience growth through loss, strength through solitude, and wisdom through delay. You may receive blessings later than others, but when they arrive with depth, stability, and barakah. You understand that Allah does not operate on human deadlines. He operates on divine wisdom. What seems late to you may be perfectly on time in the unseen order of your life. This trust changes the way you live. You stop measuring your worth by milestones you have not yet reached. You stop comparing your chapter to someone else's highlight. You stop panicking when things move slowly. Instead, you focus on obedience today, character today, sincerity today. You do good without immediate reward. You remain grateful even when your heart is tired. You continue to pray even when answers are delayed. Your peace no longer depends on how fast life moves, but on who you are walking with while it moves. Allah loves this level of trust because it reflects true submission. Anyone can trust when life is smooth and answers are quick. Very few can trust when things feel confusing, when the heart feels stretched, and when the future feels uncertain. Trusting Allah in those moments is not just patience, it is worship. It purifies the heart from jealousy, desperation, and resentment. It protects you from becoming bitter. It keeps your heart soft while you wait. My dear sister, if you are in a season where nothing seems to be happening outwardly, but your faith is being tested inwardly, understand this clearly. Waiting with Iman is not wasted time. Allah is working behind the scenes. He is aligning people, removing harm, strengthening your heart, and preparing a version of you that can receive what you are asking for without losing Him in the process. Every day you wait with patience raises your rank. Every moment you choose trust over frustration brings you closer to Allah. A woman who trusts Allah's timing does not rush destiny. She walks toward it calmly, knowing that what Allah has written for her will never miss her, and what missed her was never meant to stay. If you are still praying, still trusting, still standing, even when life feels unfair, know that this strength was placed in your heart by Allah Himself. He is not delaying you without purpose. He is preparing you for something that will arrive at the exact moment your soul is ready to carry it. 8. She seeks Allah's pleasure above all else. My dear sister, the final and most powerful sign of an extremely rare personality is this: the center of your life is Allah's pleasure. Everything else revolves around that single axis. Your decisions, your relationships, your ambitions, and even your sacrifices pass through one quiet but decisive question in your heart. Will this bring me closer to Allah, or will it pull me away from Him? This way of living is not dramatic, and it is rarely celebrated by the world, but it is one of the most beloved qualities in the sight of Allah. Seeking Allah's pleasure does not mean your life is free of desires. You still want love, security, success, and happiness. You still dream, hope, and plan. But unlike many people, your desires do not rule you. You do not chase what excites the ego if it costs your Iman. You do not pursue what looks attractive if it leaves your heart empty or uneasy. You have learned, sometimes through painful lessons, that anything gained at the cost of Allah's pleasure eventually becomes a burden rather than a blessing. So you choose carefully, even when choosing carefully means choosing slowly. My dear sister, this quality shows itself in the smallest moments. You walk away from conversations that feel wrong, even if staying would make you feel included. You decline opportunities that compromise your values, even if accepting them would bring you praise or comfort. You remain honest when dishonesty would benefit you. You remain modest when immodesty would gain attention. These choices often go unnoticed, but Allah notices every single one. And when Allah is pleased, nothing else truly matters. Seeking Allah's pleasure also means you are not driven by people's approval. Compliments do not inflate you, and criticism does not break you. You listen, you reflect, You correct yourself when needed, but you do not live for validation. You understand that people's opinions change quickly, while Allah's judgment is perfect and eternal. So when you are misunderstood, when your intentions are questioned, or when your choices are criticized, you do not rush to defend your character. You trust Allah to defend you in ways far more powerful than words ever could. This does not mean you isolate yourself from the world or become emotionally distant. You still care deeply, you still love sincerely, but your heart is anchored. You are not shaken every time someone approves or disapproves. Your sense of worth comes from knowing that you are trying sincerely to live in a way that pleases Allah. That knowledge gives you a quiet confidence that cannot be stolen. My dear sister, seeking Allah's pleasure requires courage. It requires choosing the unseen reward over immediate comfort. It requires believing that Allah's approval carries more weight than worldly success. Many people say they love Allah, but very few are willing to inconvenience themselves for Him. You are willing. You are willing to be patient when patience is hard. You are willing to let go when holding on would be easier. You are willing to wait when rushing would bring relief. This willingness is a form of worship that transforms ordinary life into an act of devotion. You have also learned that Allah's pleasure is not found only in grand gestures. It is found in consistency, in daily prayers, even when you are tired, in kind words, even when you are irritated, in honesty, even when lying would be simpler, in forgiveness, even when holding resentment feels justified. You understand that Allah loves steady hearts more than dramatic displays. So you focus on being sincere rather than impressive. There are moments, my dear sister, when choosing Allah's pleasure feels lonely, when you wonder if anyone sees how much you are giving up, when you feel delayed, overlooked, or tested longer than others. But instead of resenting Allah, you draw closer to Him. You remind yourself that the one you are trying to please is Al-Adl, the most just, and Al-Latif, the most gentle. You trust that He will never let your sincerity go unrewarded, even if the reward does not arrive in the form or timing you expect. Seeking Allah's pleasure also gives you clarity during confusion. When you are unsure about a decision, you do not only ask what feels good or what others recommend. You ask Allah for guidance. You pray istikhara. You pay attention to how your heart responds to obedience and disobedience. Over time, this connection sharpens your spiritual intuition. You begin to recognize what brings peace and what brings restlessness. That peace becomes your compass. My dear sister, Allah loves the servant who prefers Him over everything else. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that the sweetness of faith is tasted when Allah and His Messenger are more beloved to a person than anything else. This sweetness is not loud. It is calm, steady, and deeply fulfilling. It fills the heart in a way no achievement, relationship, or recognition ever could. If you have tasted even a small portion of this sweetness, you know that nothing else compares. A woman who seeks Allah's pleasure above all else is not weak, boring, or deprived. She is free. Free from chasing approval, free from comparing herself to others, free from panic over delays, free from regret over what she left behind. Her heart is anchored in something eternal. Allah arranges her life differently. Some doors close to protect her, some delays save her, some losses purify her, and some blessings arrive quietly, but with immense barakah. My dear sister, if your greatest concern is whether Allah is pleased with you, even when no one else is, then know this: you are walking a path few choose, but Allah honors greatly. This is the rarest sign of all. A heart that lives for Allah alone is a heart Allah never abandons. My dear sisters, if as you listen to these signs you felt as though your heart was being described, then pause for a moment and reflect. This is not something small. This is not something ordinary. A personality that chooses Allah in private stands firm in truth, responds with patience, finds peace in obedience, turns pain into closeness with Allah, protects a soft heart with wise boundaries, trusts Allah's timing, and seeks His pleasure above all else is not common in any era, especially in the world we live in today. These qualities are not formed overnight. They are shaped through quiet struggles, unseen sacrifices, unanswered du'as, and moments where only Allah knew how heavy your heart felt. Every time you chose obedience when it was difficult, patience when it hurt, silence when speaking would have been easier, and trust when clarity was missing, Allah was refining you. You were not being forgotten, you were being prepared. My dear sister, understand this clearly. Allah does not place this kind of depth in just any heart. He entrusts it to those He knows can carry it. He tests those He loves, not to exhaust them, but to elevate them. And sometimes, the reason you feel different from others is because you are meant to walk a different path, one that leads closer to Allah, even if it feels lonely at times. Do not underestimate the value of your sincerity. Do not doubt your journey because it looks slower or harder than someone else's. Allah is never late, never careless, and never unjust. What He is preparing for you requires the heart you are becoming, not the one you were before. And when the time comes, you will look back and realize that every delay, every tear, and every moment of patience was part of a divine plan filled with wisdom and mercy. Stay close to Allah, guard your heart, protect your faith, continue choosing Him, even when no one is watching, even when the world does not understand you, even when life feels heavy. A woman who is loved by Allah is never truly alone, never truly broken, and never truly lost. May Allah keep your heart firm, your faith strong, and your soul at peace. May He reward you for every unseen sacrifice and grant you a place among those He loves most. Amen.